Marriage kills love. Marriage kills love. And love kills what?
20 minutes.
There was a seat in the middle of American television that for 15 years almost no one else could fill. It sat at the center of a giant tic-tac-toe board. 9 boxes stacked 3 high lit up like a county fair. The seat was small. The man who sat in it was not a leading man. He had never carried a hit movie, never starred in a long-running drama. And yet, week after week, contestants would lean forward and ask for him by name. The center square. That was the seat, and the man was Paul Lynde. To understand why that seat mattered, you have to understand the game. Hollywood Squares was tic-tac-toe, played with celebrities. 2 contestants tried to claim 3 boxes in a row. To win a box, they had to agree or disagree with the answer a star gave to a trivia question. And in tic-tac-toe, one square decides everything: the middle. Whoever sat in the center got called on more than anyone else almost every single round. So whoever sat there had to be funny on demand again and again for an entire taping. Most people would crack under that. Lynde did not crack. He thrived. This is not a story about how a game show was made. It is a story about what happens when a show quietly builds itself around one person and then has to find out the hard way whether it can live without him. Because in 1979, at the height of his fame, Paul Lynde got up from that seat and walked out the door. What happened next told everyone the truth about Hollywood Squares. The question we keep coming back to is simple. Why couldn't the show survive without him? The answer begins a long way from Hollywood. Paul Edward Lynde was born on June 13, 1926, in Mount Vernon, Ohio, one of 6 children in a busy household. His father ran a meat market, and the family knew the steady, ordinary rhythms of small-town American life. He was a heavy child, and the teasing left a mark he carried his whole life. Years later, he would joke on national television that his childhood weight had made him hate certain holidays. The audience laughed, but underneath the joke was a real boy who learned early that if he could make people laugh first, he could decide what they laughed at. That instinct would become his entire career, and in time, the armor he wore over everything that hurt. He studied drama at Northwestern University, where his classmates included future stars like Cloris Leachman and Charlotte Rae. He graduated in 1948, named Best Student Actor of his year, and did what every hopeful does. He went to New York. The next 4 years were brutal. To stay alive, he waited tables. He sold his own blood for cash. He kept showing up and he kept getting passed over. For a young man certain he was talented, nothing is harder than the silence of a city that hasn't noticed you yet. The break came on Thanksgiving Day 1950 when he won an amateur talent contest. That led to nightclub gigs, and the gigs led to the show that changed everything, a Broadway revue called New Faces of 1952. He shared that stage with a remarkable group of unknowns, among them Eartha Kitt and a young writer named Mel Brooks. Lynde's standout was a monologue about a man recounting a disastrous African safari. He stopped the show with it. For the first time, New York saw exactly what Ohio had been laughing at all along. Then came the role that planted his name in the public memory. In 1960, Lynde was cast as Harry McAfee, the exasperated father in the Broadway musical Bye Bye Birdie. He reprised it in the 1963 film alongside Dick Van Dyke and Anne Margaret. He had a gift you couldn't teach. Mel Brooks once said Lynde could get a laugh reading a phone book or a seed catalog. That was the engine underneath everything. By the mid-60s, he was a working character actor popping up everywhere, and most memorably, as the sly, sarcastic Uncle Arthur on Bewitched. Hollywood Squares debuted in 1966. Lynde turned up as a guest the same year, just one of many famous faces rotating through the board. When the show began, the center square belonged to bigger names. An Academy Award winner sat there first. Over the following months, the seat passed from star to star, but producers kept noticing the same thing. When Lynde was on the panel, the room felt different. The laughs landed harder. So in 1968, after 2 years of guest spots, they made a decision that would define the show. They gave the center square to Paul Lynde, and they let him keep it. What he did with that seat is hard to overstate. The host, Peter Marshall, would read a real trivia question. But before Lynde gave a real answer, he gave a joke, quick, sly, perfectly timed. A question about an everyday topic would set up a one-liner that the studio audience never saw coming. The format gave him a straight line on a silver platter dozens of times a show, and he never missed. He was not the host. He was not the prize. He was the reason millions of people turned the channel on, and he did it more than almost anyone in the history of the format. Across the original run, Lynde appeared in roughly 700 episodes, a staggering number that meant millions of households grew up with his voice in the afternoon. He was not alone on that board. Around him sat a recurring family of faces, among them Rose Marie and the gravel-voiced Charlie Weaver, all of them part of the show's warm, familiar rhythm. But the camera and the contestants kept coming back to the middle. The others were the neighborhood. Lynde was the front porch where everyone gathered. The recognition followed. Lynde won 2 Daytime Emmy Awards for his work on the show, one in 1974 and another in 1978. He regularly topped national polls of the most liked stars on television. By the mid-70s, he had his own network specials, including the famous Paul Lynde Halloween special. In 1976, the one that of all things gave the rock band Kiss its first prime-time appearance. From the outside, this looked like a man who had it all. From the inside, it was more complicated, because the man who had everyone laughing wanted something the laughter couldn't give him. According to friends, Lynde never stopped wishing he were a movie star. He saw himself as a serious actor stuck doing comedy bits. He once said with a kind of resignation that we live in a world that needs laughter, and that if he could make people laugh, he was making an important contribution. It sounds humble. Listen closer, and you can hear a man making peace with a dream that had quietly slipped away. The center square had made him famous. It had also boxed him in. And that word, boxed, is exactly the one he would use. By the late 1970s, the tension had a price tag. The dispute was about money. In the early days, the show had paid every panelist the same flat fee under what was called a favored nations clause, a few $100s each fare for its time. But Lynde was no longer just another face in a box. By the end of his run, his appearances were worth thousands of dollars a session because everyone knew what he was really worth to the broadcast. He wanted to be paid like the draw he had become, and the negotiations stalled. There was history here. Years earlier, in the show's first season, he had already left once over pay, only to be coaxed back when the host personally called and told him the standoff was silly. This time, the disagreement was sharper. And in 1979, after taping a final week of episodes, that August, Paul Lynde got up and left Hollywood squares. It got uglier before it got better. Tabloids ran stories claiming Lynde had been fired, pushed out over his drinking and trouble on the set. Lynde was furious. He sued, seeking $10 million in damages, insisting the story was false. Whatever the full truth of those backstage years, one thing is documented. He left over the contract on his own terms, at a moment when he was still the most popular face on the show. He did not go quietly into retirement. He stood up and walked out the door, and the door closed behind him. And here is where the show learned its lesson. With the center square empty, the ratings began to slip. The producers tried to carry on, but the chemistry that had made the board crackle was gone. There is a difference between a show that is popular and a show that is held together by one person, and Hollywood Squares was about to discover which one it was. The numbers told the story plainly. Audiences hadn't tuned in for tic-tac-toe. They had tuned in for the man in the middle. Without him, they started turning the channel. Off the show, Lynde's career had its own struggles. The acting jobs grew thinner, whether that was the prejudice of the era against an openly campy performer or his reputation for being difficult when he was drinking. The offers slowed. His last film role had come in 1979, a comedy in which he played a chief named Nervous Elk opposite his old Bye Bye Birdie co-star Anne Margaret. The movie star dream was by now simply over. The funniest man on daytime television was in a quiet way running out of stage. In early 1980, something changed in Paul Lynde. After years of hard living, he got sober. He gave up the drinking that had cost him so much, and friends said he was determined to get his life back on track. And around that same time, Hollywood Squares came calling again. The show was in a ratings free fall without him, and the producers knew the cure. They made him an offer he chose not to refuse, and the Center Square's most famous occupant agreed to come home. It was a homecoming, but it was also a rescue mission, and it came too late to save the show. The series had moved its production, and the magic of the early years could not simply be switched back on. Hollywood Squares limped to the end of its long original run and was canceled in early 1981. The man who had made the Center Square the most valuable seat in daytime television was there at the finish in the same chair when the lights finally went dark on the show he had carried for the better part of 15 years. There is a hard irony in what came next. Lynde had finally cleaned himself up. He had given up the cigarettes and the alcohol. He told his agent he was healthy, hopeful looking ahead. But the body keeps a ledger. Decades of hard living had already worn down his heart. On January 10, 1982, after he failed to show up at a friend's birthday party and would not answer his phone, friends grew worried and went to his Beverly Hills home. They found that he had died in his sleep, a heart attack. He was 55 years old. To know what kind of man we are talking about, consider one small moment from his peak. In 1976, the American Guild of Variety Artists named Paul Lynde the funniest man of the year. It was his award, his night, his recognition at last. And when he stepped up to accept it, he turned and handed the trophy to the evening's host, Jackie Gleason, telling the room that Gleason was the funniest man who ever lived. He gave away his own honor in front of everyone and made it sound like the most natural thing in the world. That was Lynde off the clock, generous with credit, quietly sure of himself, never needing to stand alone at the center to feel whole. It would be easy to end on the sadness, the comeback that didn't last, the dream of movie stardom that never arrived, the heart that gave out, just as he was trying to mend it. But that is not the whole measure of the man. Look at what he held together. For 15 years, he walked into a studio and on command, dozens of times a day, made a nation laugh. He did it under pressure most performers never face. He did it while carrying his own private disappointments, and he did it so well that when he stood up and left, an entire show discovered it could not stand without him. That is the answer to the question we started with. Hollywood Squares couldn't survive without Paul Lynde because it was never really just a game. It was a stage, and he was the act. The board was 9 boxes of plywood and wire. He was the spark that made it worth watching. So the next time you see that old footage, the freckled grin, the sly pause before the punchline, try not to think of the lonely ending. Think of the craft. Think of a kid from Mount Vernon who decided he would make the world laugh, and then against long odds actually did. The seat is empty now. But for 15 years, no one filled it better, and the show that lost him spent its final season proving it.